Almost there. 2 more minutes. Then we'll get going. If you need to grab anything, having a ginger ale. Looks like I'm drinking while I'm giving this presentation, but I promise it's just ginger ale. Ready. Okay, 1 more minute if anybody needs to run to the bathroom or anything before we start. And we'll get going. So many people joining tonight. I'm so excited for this. Okay. So, hello to everybody. I'm going to walk us through kind of the structure of tonight. It's going to be a presentation and then a little bit of collaborative chat about what you all have done in your quest to try to conquer the summer weather. But we're going to start out with a presentation. Leslie's going to take a couple slides as well in there, and we're basically going to detail safety precautions, kind of challenges and benefits of this time of year, and ways that you can, and tips that you can take into your training, and the things that we can discuss on the log or an email or on other video chats that we have one-on-one, and ways that we can really optimize this time, because even though there are challenges with summer training, it really is a great time to get really fit with some mindset training and just letting our natural physiological changes occur. I already have it recorded. Thank you, Leslie. If you have any questions during the actual presentation, please put them in the chat. Leslie, if you don't mind, while during my slides, if you monitor the chat, that'd be great. And then I can monitor it while you're doing it. That would be awesome. So if you all have anything that pops up along the way, please just write it in there and we will address those then. If it's anything that's more global that you want to talk about, wait till the end. And then there'll be an open discussion then as well. So let's jump in. I'm going to share these slides with you. And then we'll just get going so we have that good time for discussion afterward. So, all righty. Oh, it'd be helpful if I shared it from the beginning though. Oh, look. Oh my goodness. There we go. Okay. Super professional. All right. So we're going to be talking about mitigating summer training challenges. This is not comprehensive, but I am going to talk about a lot of the things that we all deal with more on a daily basis, and some of the things that are going to be hopefully most helpful to you all. And then if we want to expand on that, again, we can talk about it at the end of this conversation, or we can talk about it one-on-one later. So the first thing that I definitely want to go over are general safety considerations for us, like when you need to say, not good to go outside and run. There are very few situations, but with climate change and fires and things going on that we usually don't deal with, there are some times when we need to modify. So we'll go over those, and then we'll jump into the physiology of things. So what challenges our body goes through when it has a new situation arise, like humidity or heat or dew point. And then what benefits we get from that after the time we need to adapt to it. So, sorry if you can hear my dogs. We're going to go over some heat mitigation strategies, and then we're also going to go over some modifications that you can do and how you can calculate your fluid needs, both your daily life pre-run, during run, and post-run. And then there's going to be a little surprise at the end for us all, and then we'll have some team conversation. So let's do it. So general safety considerations. I'm kind of going to fly through this. This you can go back to.
Can you share your screen again?
Oh, did it pop off?
Yeah.
It should be sharing. It says it's sharing on my end. One moment. Hold on one second. That's strange. That good? It says it's presenting.
Yes. Now
Was
we're
it
good.
presenting before? Were you
It was on and then it was off when you were at the end. So it's turned off, but it's okay. We're good.
Thanks for keeping me on track. So I was just going to mention that all of this is going to be available to you. I'm going to share it. So a lot of these are resources for you. So you can go back and see, hey, my muscle cramps might be, associated with dehydration and the effects of heat exhaustion, or if I'm experiencing anything else, this is what it could be. We really just most commonly want to look for those cramps. We look for any kind of cognitive issues like dizziness or headache or nausea, not nausea, sorry, but yes, nausea, but that's not a cognitive issue. Headaches, things like that. Excessive sweating can be a little bit tricky, so I wouldn't go off that directly. But a lot of this in conjunction with another or a pair of others can really kind of lead you down that line to, hey, I'm not taking enough fluids in, I'm not mitigating these challenges enough to be training. So please be on the lookout for that. Share anything in your injury notes that might pop up in this list, and we'll do that together. We'll mitigate it together. Make sure this keeps going. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now the fun stuff. So challenges of summer training. You all might be aware of some of these, but we have a lot of fluid loss that can happen. It can cause our blood volume to go down, and even a slight amount can impact our performance very heavily. So if we look at just 2% of our body weight, and if we're losing that in electrolytes, so salts and waters and stuff through our sweat, it's already giving us 4 to 6% of our performance reduction, which is significantly impactful, especially when we're going after goals in the summer. So really considering what the challenges are and meeting those, and we'll go through that, is going to be big. We also have a reduction in oxygen to our working muscles. And obviously, if we don't have oxygen going to our body appropriately, we're going to have performance reductions there. I'm sure you all have felt this, but of course our perceived exertion goes up. So it's going to feel harder to do the same effort, and our heart rate is going to be higher too. So if you randomly see your heart rate pop up, I would check to see if humidity, dew point, temperature is elevated as well. Any three or all three. And that could be an indicator of what's going on rather than just having some fitness issue. When these things occur, after they occur for 14 days-ish, we usually say a couple of weeks, then our body starts meeting that demand. So the demand for better oxygenation of our muscular system, for example. And so your body produces more plasma volume. It can deliver that oxygen more efficiently. It can maintain your homeostasis or your thermoregulation a lot easier by increasing your sweat rate and increasing the rapidity that you sweat. So like how fast that you sweat. So instead of taking 10 minutes to come on, you're sweating at like 2 or 3 minutes into your run because that anticipation is happening faster and everything is more efficient. As these changes occur, it's awesome because we see increases in VO2 max even at a slower pace. So even though your paces are not the same as they were before, that does not mean changes aren't occurring. So it's hard when we look at our watch all the time, just randomly, and see that our effort is not meeting the same pace as we had previously, especially in workouts. But particularly when there are weather changes, just like humidity and just like temperature, just like dew point changes, it's important to kind of break down those that narrative in your mind and replace it with the factual information that even though you're at a slower pace, you're still getting adaptations, and you're getting a lot of adaptations we don't see throughout the year that come along with these summer weather patterns that will increase your fitness just by being out in those temperatures and running easy. So again, I'm not going to go over all this. This is going to be available to you. My main goal is to really solidify the fact and let you really just like embody the notion that this is a really, really, really good time for fitness. And there's a lot of opportunities that we can take advantage of by just being out in it. Speaking to the pace changes that you're going to see, there are some general rules that we see in the literature. So if you want to go with broad scope general rules, anything over 50s is going to affect your paces. So for the same effort. So if you're seeing 60 degrees, usually adding about 5 seconds is a good rule of thumb. And it goes up from there. So 5 more seconds in the 70s, 5 more seconds in the 80s. This increases even more. It's nonlinear, so it's increasing even more the higher you get in temperature. There was a specific piece of literature that showed faster paces see a little bit of a different, a little bit less impact. Sorry, faster paces are a little bit and are impacted a little bit less from heat and humidity than those slower moderate or to moderate paces. And so if you are working running a workout, you might not see as many changes in pace, or as maybe not as significant of a change in pace. But if you are on your easier runs, it's going to impact you more. So just keeping that in mind, again, for the psychological aspect of this, it can be really impactful when we see things trending in the wrong direction, but knowing that this is how it's supposed to be is encouraging. Again, if there are any questions along the way, I'm just going to kind of breeze through this so that we have the ability to spend time. But if there's any questions along the way, please just put it in the comments. And I am going to hand over to Leslie for these next few slides.
Yeah, so this is actually kind of related to my life at the moment because I recently relocated from New York City back to Florida. I grew up in Florida, but now I'm back. And the weather is making a real big difference in my running outside. So any of you who've been in the South in the summer, you get it. But summer lasts from like April to October, right? Thanks, Dylan. So the 3 things that we always hear about humidity, right? Like, oh, this humidity is so awful. But really, what's awful is dew point, right? So when you think about something, okay, let's say it's 55 degrees outside, but it's 100% humidity. That actually feels pretty nice, opposed to 75 degrees outside and 100% humidity, which feels not great, right? Humid and muggy. And so then the difference in those things is actually the dew point, right? So dew points, how much moisture is in the air, and actually translates into how it's going to feel outside. So if it's cooler and 100% humidity, you're probably not going to notice. So these are just some general, again, guidelines on how comfortable it might feel for you for dew point. Most weather apps provide dew point, so it's a pretty straightforward thing to find. If you live in a more humid region, the 60 to 64 dew point might not be slightly uncomfortable for you. But if you're somebody who's normally in more of a dry area, then that 60 to 64 would probably start to get into that slightly uncomfortable. And then, but just overall feeling, and then that's your next one, because then we talk about actual impacts on running. So similar chart, a little bit smaller. But as that dew point gets above 60, you need to adjust effort and your expectations, right? So as soon as you're going over that 60-degree dew point, right, you're going to feel a difference. You may need to adjust your performance. Anything that says it's above 80 degrees in the dew point, it just says just run, right? Not recommended really for anything, but that's really up to you. And my favorite thing is a fact that I've picked up, heat immunity is the poor person's altitude training. So take it in, take it slow, and reap in those benefits before the fall comes around. And again, we'll share these so you can zoom in on it later for yourself. But 60 is kind of like the marker for your dew point, 60 to 65.
I'll
Mute,
show you
Catherine.
muted.
Listen, I am failing this real bad. Like, please, all you do not quit the team because of my presentation skills this evening. It is 45
You're
minutes.
doing great, Asher.
Thank you. Pamela, always coming in with a cheer. I love that. Okay, what I was saying, we're going to go over some heat mitigation strategies now. And thanks, Leslie. These are ways that when you're getting into a run, getting into a workout, getting into a race, you can help maintain those thermoregulatory systems and homeostasis. So we're really thinking about how to control our core body temperature and maintain it at a lower temp as long as possible. As it increases, performance is going to take a hit. And after you reach a critical threshold, then there's no coming back. There's no mitigating it back. You're going into an overheated state and we're pretty much done. So utilizing some of these strategies can help you maintain that lower level for a longer period of time and be able to race and meet in the challenges easier. So we're talking about pre-cooling to start with. There are different ways of doing this. First off, it's taking in fluids appropriately before you get into the run itself. And I'm going to detail that in the slides to come. But you want to think about getting in those electrolyte drinks, particularly within the hour coming up to the run. Again, I'll detail some literature that gives you more specifics in a second. And then filling those bottles with ice. If you're a woman and wearing a sports bra, filling that with ice. Otherwise, you can take a buff, put some ice in that, wrap it up and put that around your neck. Anything that you can think of to help cool your body and maintain that cooled temperature for longer. Wearing light, comfortable clothing that's a little bit more loose can help, both in weight and color. And then we're going to calculate hydration needs throughout the run so that you'll have that information too, or I'll show you how to calculate it. We also need to think not only about fluids as in water, but fluids as in water, electrolytes, and then afterward, water, electrolyte, and carbohydrate to properly refuel and properly get that absorption without it just running through us. So we're going to utilize ice. Again, we're going to have light clothing. We're going to really fuel or utilize fluids well. And then as Leslie was talking about, you want to maintain effort, keep it slow, keep it easy, press when you need to. And we will go over, if you have any races during the summer, ways to really focus in your energy on certain segments so that we're conserving and unleashing at the right time. The other big impactful tip that I have for you, just especially for my ultra runner crew, is cooling superficial vascular areas. So when you come through an aid station, thinking about dumping water on your wrists, dumping water on your femoral area, as long as you don't chafe a lot, and then carotid, thinking about the neck as well. Any of those superficial, so where you can see your veins, superficial arterial areas is a really big help. Make sure I don't accidentally click off this presentation. Okay, so replenishing fluids and electrolytes. In the literature, it's showing the best ways of maintaining your fluid levels as much as possible, because we're naturally going to lose some throughout the run, is aiming for about 16 to 20 ounces a couple hours prior to your run. And then you're taking in about 10 to 12 ounces within 10 minutes of your run. So if this is a lot, you can go back and just focus a little bit simpler on, I'm going to drink up to 20 ounces within an hour. But if you want to get a little bit more specific and a little bit more impactful, then this is the outline that you want to do, or the protocol that you want to focus on. During your run, you're going to take about 8 to 16 ounces with you per hour to drink. Again, you're filling that with ice too, but don't calculate the ice. The ice might not melt. We want to make sure we're getting it into our system. And the big thing here is you want to sip and not gulp. So gulping is going to not allow your body to fully absorb all of the fluids in your system. You're going to push it out because it's just impossible for your GI system to absorb those fluids in a short period of time. So instead, if you focus on every 15 or 20 minutes, taking in a small amount, aiming for those 8 to 16 ounces over the entire hour. You're going to absorb a lot more. You're going to be peeing a lot less on that course, and you're going to be able to maintain your fluid levels better and performance levels better. So post-run, you're looking at the first 2 hours as your big focus area. You're trying to correct any fluid loss during that period of time. I'm going to show you how you can calculate that fluid loss. And then within about 4 to 6 hours after your run, you're going to want to take in about 25% more of your fluid loss. You'll calculate your fluid loss. You'll take in 100% of that fluid loss. And then you're going to break that into a fourth, and you're going to try to add that to your intake 4 to 6 hours afterward. And that's going to completely refuel you or fluid you, give you those fluids back to the appropriate amount, because our metabolism does maintain a higher level a little bit after our runs. So you will have a higher rate of hydration needs even a little bit after. So that's going to complete your hydration protocol. General rule of thumb is going to be about half of your body weight throughout the day. And this is without running. Just a normal human being, you're going to want to aim for about half of your body weight in ounces. And then on top of that, you're going to want to go back to those fluid protocols that I just went through to calculate what your needs are as a runner. There's a USATF protocol, so USA Track and Field Protocol, for their pro athletes. And what they do to calculate those personal needs during events is they take a workout before your main goal event, and they have you go through, or they have their athletes go through a warm up to the point where they're sweating. And then they say, okay, if you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, and then strip down and go weigh yourself on the same scale we'll use later. Then they have them do an intensity run. So you're going to aim for the exact pace you're aiming at. And this is adjustable depending on what you're doing, but this is for like marathon or ultra marathoners. So you're going to aim for an hour long of the exact same pace you're going to do for your race. And then you'll come back and you'll write down how many fluid ounces you drank during the run. And you will strip down again without going to the bathroom and use the same scale and weigh yourself again. And then we'll take the difference between your initial weights and your weight afterward, add in the fluids that you took in, and then calculate the percentage loss. I am going to add in a little link to show you the actual calculation and the chart that goes with that, so that if you want to do this, A, we can do it together if you want to hop on a call, or if we want to do it just over email. But B, you can also just go to that link and easily put it in and calculate it that way. And I encourage everyone to do this summer. I think this is going to be something that I encourage going forward. But if you would like to do this, we can take one of your workout sessions or one of your long run sessions would be great too, and kind of break it up and make sure we integrate this in a way that's beneficial for you, both in knowing those calculations and the results of those calculations, but also beneficial to your workout for the week. So I added a little tip on there, but we don't need to go over that right now. So that all being said, we are going to do a new team challenge for your daily needs. We did this last year. It was pretty popular. Y'all pretty much liked it. I don't think I got too many complaints. So we're going to reintegrate that into our summer training again this year. It's going to be 2 weeks, and we're going to focus on your daily needs. And then during that 2 weeks, if you are somebody who wants to focus in on more of the specific needs that your body is requiring for when you work out and when you're racing, then that is a time that I would really like to focus on getting a workout in that goes through the USATF protocol and gets you the numbers that you need, so that we can really, really be strong this summer. Because again, all of these beneficial adaptations that happen over those couple weeks and throughout the summer as the heat changes, because it's not just you're adapting to 75-degree heat right now, but you're going to be adapting to 85, 90-degree heat later. Those changes are going to stay with you through the cooler weather when we are racing more and more aggressively. And I just want to be there to support you all. And Leslie, I know, does too, to support you all in the best ways we know how. Those ways are going to change. We haven't done the specific protocol before. We have done the daily hydration needs. And as we learn more, I want to give you all that. And so if you are interested, that would be a follow-up for us as well. But if you're also interested in the new team challenge, I'm gonna be releasing more details about that soon, but the tentative dates are the 10th through the 23rd. So that should be fine. All right. Got through in 30 minutes. Sorry if I talked fast. But I do want to take a good chunk of time to just talk about some of the mitigation strategies you all have gone through. Oh, Dylan, he can share a lot. It's 87 right now where he's at. I'm going to talk about the mitigation strategies that you all have kind of implemented and have worked or have not worked for you, because we have road racers, tracksters, ultra marathoners all here tonight. And learning from each other is going to be more beneficial than me just talking at you the whole time. And so I put in some questions. If anybody would like to kind of jump in and maybe share a race that you did that was really challenging, and things that you thought went well, or issues that you had that you maybe changed or haven't changed yet for later, lessons learned would be great. So anybody that would like to contribute, we would be very thankful too. I'll be like that teacher that everyone hates that calls people out in a second if I need to. Yay, Dylan, hurrah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if you guys can see me, but I'm sitting outside right now. Sunday, I ran 18 miles, and I live in Florida. We're in the hot humidity part of the summer where, the sun tries to actively kill you every day. And what worked well for me was on Saturday, I wound up drinking 2 of those Gator Lights, like those electrolyte drinks. My coach had recommended to me to drink more than one, because I'm usually like one a day. Like I used to like Gatorade, but the sugar in the Gatorade was just kind of like, it was making me bloated and kind of like cramping up and stuff. So I would always cut it with water, but I found that Gator Light works better for me. It's a lot cheaper too, but um and then I ran 18 on Sunday, and it was a progression run. Um and I thought it went very well because, like, as I started around 5 in the morning, and then I finished around 7:30, 8ish. And like as it got hotter in the run, I wound up putting like a white shirt on, and I wound up wearing like a hat as well. And I felt that that was like something that worked very well for me, especially living in Florida, because like I can tell when the dew points in the 70s. You can walk outside and you can't breathe. Um, but I think I drank maybe like 50 ounces of water during the run. I didn't take any electrolytes in during the run. It was just water. And then I had 2 gels. Um, and I don't know, that just worked well for me, was hydrating more like electrolyte wise the day before, like a big effort. That worked well for me. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's great. So did your coach talk? So Dylan works with us with strength and then has his own run coach as well. Did he, I believe, talk to you about preloading with electrolytes at all? I was reading this literature, like actually while I was doing this, and we talk frequently about preloading like a gel before you go out for a race. But there's research that shows 400 milligrams of sodium before a run can actually help as well, especially when that dew point is really high. Oh no, go ahead.
So I used to take this salt stuff. I can't remember what it's called. It's just this lemonade, awful tasting, salty. And they wouldn't. Long story short is the airport made me throw it out because they got through TSA and didn't get through TSA anymore, so I had to throw it out. I forget what it's called, but I took that before a marathon, And it worked well for me. I can't, well, I shouldn't say I can't. If I'm gonna preload, I have to eat something because all that sodium in my stomach tends to make me want to throw up. So I try to stay away from that.
Yeah.
Before my runs, like I'll eat like half a bagel, and maybe a gel. Like I don't typically eat a whole lot before my runs. I try to eat what I need the day before, and I wake up in the morning and then I'll drink some water and go out and run, and then I'll get all my calories afterwards.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense. That makes sense. Hey, Ryan, didn't you do a sweat test recently? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. Basically, they told me that I was a very sweaty sweater, compared to whatever. I mean, like they put me in the top 1 percentile of
Ooh,
their distribution.
look at you.
I was like, cool, I'm part of the top 1%. Yeah, so generally, I mean, honestly, I don't run in the heat that much because we live in the mountains, and I mean, there's a few periods of the year that it gets warm, but not that much. But I was finding even at cooler temperatures that I would have stomach issues later in longer races. So the sweat test basically was like, okay, increase your electrolyte consumption. And I've generally done that. I think I was doing it better last summer, and then over the winter, haven't really been doing it as well. So kind of want to get back to that. But generally, I found that increasing the salt intake, both like before and during, was key. So, I mean, Precision Hydration is the company that I was doing the sweat test through, and they obviously do these sweat tests, so then they can sell you a bunch of their products. But at the same time, I think, for people who are very salty sweaters, it can make sense to be consuming like much higher levels of sodium. But I think you want to know that you actually are a very salty sweater and not just do it because it's cool marketing.
I agree with that a lot. The variance is pretty high between like individuals when it comes to sweat, and like not only how much they're sweating, but what they're actually sweating out and excreting and stuff. I know we talked about your sweat test, and it didn't break it down quite as much as we would hope, because that is helpful, because things like Gatorade, like Dylan was talking about, doesn't have a large variety of electrolytes in it. And so it can be beneficial if you are looking at a sweat test, doing one with a company that does give you a little bit more of that additional information. But even just knowing that you're a heavy sweater and that you excrete a lot it's good information, because there is a big difference between people and between men and women. Women tend to handle heat and humidity a little bit better than men in general. And so there's just a lot of difference in gender and potentially where you live. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
You should finish.
Oh, well, I was rambling a little bit, but all I was saying is that there's just a lot of factors that go into it. So it's good to have that data.
Yeah, I was curious if one of the factors was like nutrition, and if you're eating more salty, you're gonna sweat more salty. And so as a result, if you like for some reason start to eat less salty, then the sweat test that you were doing is not as relevant anymore. Like if you have changes in your nutrition for one reason or another, would that impact how you want to think about your hydration?
Yeah, that's a good question. I might reach out to Lydia and ask her about that for us, because I, as a physical therapist who does not know the answer to that question, would hypothesize that probably not, because you would filter out through like, oh, Ashlyn, do you know Ashlyn, do you know the question or answer to the question?
Unrelated question. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Sorry.
But I would think that it wouldn't be like what you're taking in is also going to go out. It's two separate systems. So it's digestive system and then your cooling system, essentially. But I don't know. I will ask her. And when I send this presentation out, I'll also include that information. But good question. Hey, Ash, you want to go next?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, when or why would you suggest doing a sweat test? Like, what would prompt one to do that?
Oh, honestly, it's just a good thing to do if you have the
Okay.
resources to do it. Because electrolyte imbalance has such an impact on performance and everything from muscular contractility to general fluid levels in our body. And it is good to know so we can replenish correctly, because kind of like what I was referencing when I was talking about replenishing, you need to have a good balance of water, electrolyte, and carbohydrates in your system of replenishing after. And so knowing that you need to add more salts, add more electrolytes, I shouldn't just say all salts, but electrolytes in will allow you to give your body back what it's excreted out and get your body back to that homeostatic level a little bit easier. But it's not necessary. There's ways of kind of sussing it out based on how you subjectively feel and objective data. If we look at the weather really closely and stuff and do some calculations, but it's not exact until we actually do the sweat test. It's not necessary, but it's nice. Yeah. Pamela, what's up?
Hello. Well, thanks so much,
Hello.
Asher and Leslie, for hosting this and putting this on. So I just wanted to add a different kind of approach and perspective. I am the opposite of Ryan.
Ooh.
So I don't sweat. I mean, clearly I'm human, so there's got to be a little bit. But literally, I can run for a 3-hour run, and the most I'll have is a couple little drops underneath my nose. That's it. It is bizarre, and yet I went to the doctors because I was concerned, and they're like, no, you're normal. But I am now curious. I'm actually would love to take that sweat test just to literally. I feel like I'm going to be the bottom 1%. But I will say, I think it does create, some people are like, oh, I wish I had that, because I feel like I'm like a camel. I got to constantly chug water out there. But I think it is different though, because I have to be very careful. Because I can run for 2 hours and be like, or 3 hours even. And sometimes I realize I've literally drank 8 ounces of water, and that's not good. But my body, when I'm out there, it doesn't feel like I'm hurting, but I know I pay for it after. So I will say, I don't know if anyone else is similar to me, where it's a different extreme. And so I have to literally force challenges onto myself to making it habitual to care for my body in a hydration and nutrition aspect. So I live in Berkeley, and so in the summertime, when I need to prepare my body for heat training as well as race training for summer events, I actually adjust my schedule to running at the hottest time of the day, which in Berkeley, believe it or not, I know we're right near the water, but it can get between 80 to sometimes 95 degrees. But I will force myself to running at those hotter times to simulate that heat acclimation. And what I do is I approach every single run as I would a race. I don't race every run, but what I will say is my hydration, my fueling strategy, I actually perceive it as a run. I understand that might be mentally exhausting for some, but it's proven actually to be very beneficial for me. So what that means is I always have a 20-ounce drink with goo. I'll take a goo electrolyte mix. And put that into 20 ounces of water. I have that within a 30 to 45-minute window before I head out for my run. And if it's under an hour, I'll simply carry water. But if it extends beyond the 90 to, maybe, or an hour and a half to 2 hours, I'll have a water flask with me as well as a goo electrolyte flask. And then I exchange between taking goo gels and Spring Energy to have a combination for my body to absorb different levels, and some with caffeine and some not. And that has been a good strategy for me. But for me though, I have to be super careful because my body has a really hard time telling me, hey, you're getting low, because of my unique sweat rate, which I am so curious now. I actually never knew about sweat tests. This is a thing now. So thank you for introducing that to me. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of my approach.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So when you realized this, and started like putting in all of these like checks for yourself to make sure you were getting in enough, did you set your watch? How did you remind yourself to actually drink what you were carrying?
I did. So this is why it would take a couple hours, and I'd realize, whoops, my flask is full. I would take literally 3 sips in a 2-hour period, and it's crazy. But I am one of the self-professed mindless runners. I can run hard and I love to race hard. I like to be very competitive. But when I am training, I can literally be out there for 4 hours and just mindlessly, I call it prancing. I just go out there and party. And so I don't look at my watch. I am not a data cruncher. It's just not a thing I do. So in order for me to actually care for my body better, I did have to set timers on my watch. And sometimes my watch accidentally would freeze or something. So I actually used my phone as the backup. So I would have 2 beepers going to literally be like, Pamela, take some freaking water or take your gel now. And now it is completely habitual. And it actually took me about 6 months to create. I know some people say it takes 2 months for a habit. Maybe I'm just a finicky person, but it took me about 6 months for me to get into a rhythm of, I don't even need to look at my watch. I know I need to start taking in either it's liquid or it is a gel. And so now I'm good to go. But it was a good 6-month trial and error, and finding out what works for me. And so my performance improved dramatically after that. That was 2018. I started to realize that I needed to do something if I wanted to be more competitive. And then 2019, before, of course, everything changed the year after that. 2019 was a dramatic shift in terms of my performance and was the best racing year I've ever had. And now I'm getting back into racing right now. But I was like, wow, I feel like maybe having more than 3 sips of water in 2 hours makes a difference. So it was good.
That's really smart of you, and just how you like methodically went about it, even if it took a little bit longer to make it a habit. Like it hadn't been a habit for a really long time. And intaking things, our GI, just training our GI takes a while. Like there's a routine, like I'm going to get up and have a glass of water in the morning. And then there's training your body to take in volumes of things while you're doing other activities. And that's more difficult. So I think you did obviously it's been very productive for you. That's amazing. Good job. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a little bit more about the sweat test too, because maybe people are like, well, how on earth do they measure how much you sweat and how salty it is?
Yeah.
And it's actually very easy because they just put this like little sensor on your wrist and it somehow stimulates your response to heat. So you don't actually need to like run really hard in 100-degree weather or something for an hour in order to like assess your sweat. It takes like 10 or 15 minutes and is pretty painless.
That's good. How long did it take for you to get the results back? Do you remember?
Oh, they read them out to me while I was there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I got PDF of it afterwards.
Yeah. That's really great. Does anyone else have any tips? I know we're kind of in December now, but some people are still, oh yeah, good question. How much is a sweat test? I'm not exactly, I haven't gotten one personally.
I got mine in San Francisco. Perhaps it varies by location. I think it was probably about $250, so it's not cheap.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's some variability in that. I can do some research and see, and also vet some people, some companies as well, and then see if there's also any that will break down the contents of sweat a little bit more instead of just saying volume. Oh yeah, that's a good question. Leslie.
I have. So Element, if you haven't heard of it, it can be pretty salty, but it's nice because they also give you a range on how to mix. So it's like mix between 16 to 32 ounces to kind of like find what suits your taste buds better. I kind of liked the really salty, but that was me. I got the like sample pack. I do not like any of their spicy flavors. That was weird. Like spicy water is not okay. Like I don't know whose idea what that was, but like there's like habanero orange or something. It was like, what? But I tried it and I was like, no, that just went down the drain. And I still have a packet of the plain, which I haven't tried yet because I feel like that would be just like drinking salt water, and I don't know how I feel about that either. But I mean, I drank it after coming back from a run to replace electrolytes, not while on the run. So I don't know if I would like trust my stomach on it on the run, but that's me. Or maybe the day before, kind of like what Dylan was saying about like pre, whatnot. So yeah. Osmo. Yeah.
Asher, you're muted again.
No, I'm trying to stay silent because I squeak around and then I don't remember to turn it back on. Good gracious, it's been like 3 years of all virtual, and this is what I've learned, nothing. I know a lot of people are using salt tabs too. I do that personally because I don't like a lot of flavor in general on my runs. My GI doesn't, it's not even my GI, I just don't like it. I don't prefer it. And so salt tabs are a really easy way. Easy to carry, can put it in your vest or put it in a little pocket on your water bottle or in a pocket in your shorts. And just pop those whenever you're drinking anytime. And you can vary it. Element or elementy, whatever you want to call it, is particularly salty in general with the electrolyte availability, like company availables out there. It's one of the higher densities of salt that is out there. So there are a lot of different ways to trial and error this. If you do have the ability to get a sweat test, that can help to know that if you need something like that. But it's not the like gold standard by any means. It's very much like nutrition in general. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to need different requirements. There's a lot of options out there, thank goodness, for everyone. So my big suggestion would be try it out, Emily. Order a pack or go to a running store so you don't have to buy a whole bunch, and just try it out. But yeah, I would do what Leslie did, is I would try it post-run or pre-run first before you add it during your run. Yeah, anyone else have any experience with that? Matt, I'm going to actually answer your question. Sorry to jump around. I'm going to actually answer your question offline. I'll message you about that. Oh yeah, Caitlin, does that work well for you? Using UCAN? Can you share about that if you want to? Maybe. Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of different options. Again, this is a really good thing to just come to us one-on-one about if you would like to kind of experiment with things, because it really is experimentation. Leslie, why don't you go ahead and then we'll go to Ode.
Yeah, so no, it was just more of like a summer thing. So I was actually watching Good Morning America this morning, and they were doing a whole thing on like flavored ice cubes and popsicles and like all those kind of things. And let me tell you, friend, you should add flavored ice cubes and popsicles to your summer hydration routine. So, and actually, I'm going to call Christina out on this. I know she's on
I was just kind of waiting.
but she like eats popsicles like midway through her run. Like she'll stop by her house and have a popsicle, or I don't know, maybe she has a cooler and leaves it in the car. Like
I've thought about trying that actually instead
this
of
is
going back in the
mind-blowing to me.
house. But
Yeah.
the ones I'm trying are actually they're organic super fruit freeze pops, so they're not super sugary, which is what I like about them, because I have done the super sugary ones. But to be honest, these I think are lighter on your stomach, but they definitely cool you down because it is absolutely hot and humid where I'm at. And I have found, since Leslie knows this, I'm not the best at fueling. I'm working on it, but these definitely help with the heat. And I think doing that, I get, a little extra hydration, and it 100% cools me down better than honestly just doing water.
It's a great idea. Pedialyte actually has
Popsicle.
like icicle popsicles now, and they will have more electrolytes in them, but they are more sugary, but they do, that also has more carbs. So it might be something to try out too.
Yep.
For anyone thinking that's a good idea. Ode, what do you have to add?
One thing I'm curious about is if you have strategies, like, I mean, you can like do the right things all the time and so on, but most likely like things are gonna go south. And suddenly you've run 2 hours and you didn't drink anything. Like, how do you like, and assuming you still have more to run, like how do you get back on track? I assume that like catching up on 2 hours of running just right there is not the best idea. Like, how do you like get back to a better state?
It's really tricky too, because everybody is different with how much they can handle. You don't want to just completely flood your system with fluids, because you're going to pee out most of it and you might end up causing yourself to be hyponatremic, and like it's just not good. We don't want to send ourselves into another like a physiological response due to the amount of fluids that are in your system. But I will say trying to get in electrolytes quickly as well as water. So don't, if you can, if your body can handle it, don't just intake water, intake a good amount of electrolytes as well. Again, if you can't take in anything that is flavored, if you've reached that point where your GI is totally not wanting anything in it whatsoever, go to a salt tab and try to implement any mitigation strategies that you can that will reduce your thermodynamic state. So if you feel like you are overheating in any way, like if you're in a race and you just feel dizzy all of a sudden and you know that you haven't been drinking enough, I would say, especially in ultra marathons and stuff, take time to walk, take time to maybe sit at an aid station, take time to sip water, do any kind of, frozen watermelon chunks if they have them there, even cooled watermelon chunks, and then put water, cold water or ice water over, not a lot because it could send you into shock if you dump it over your head. That's not what we want. We don't want to pendulum over to the extreme, but take cold water and again, douse yourself in those superficial areas. You can put cold water over your head, over your face. You probably know this already. Just keep ice water off of it because it can cause your body to have a reaction just from the extreme change. But essentially, like bringing yourself down as quickly as possible. Kind of like I mentioned before, there is a critical threshold. There is a point where your body's just like, I'm done. But most of the time we can feel that before it comes, and we know all of a sudden we realize, like you said, it's been 2 hours and I haven't put in my body what I need to continue. So reduce the intensity, reduce duration if you have flexibility in your run, and start replenishing as quickly as possible is my best suggestion, and do it superficially. So mitigate superficially as well as internally. Yeah. Have you been in that situation before?
I think so. Like at the end of ultras, like the few times I've done longer ultras, like the past few hours. I mean, part of it is likely the exhaustion, but I think it was also like, oh, maybe I haven't been as good. Like once my brain is not as much there, it's just like, oh, did I take a gel like 10 minutes ago or half an hour ago? And it's like, so
unfortunately, like it's mostly learning to be more proactive. Like you want to start with fluids 30 minutes before any kind of fatigue point. So being fluids and nutrition early and often, and then putting in those strategies, even in marathon training too, like in marathon racing, where you don't have to think about when and if, it's already taken care of for you, kind of like what Pamela did with setting her watch and her phone as a backup. A lot of the times prevention is the key, but there are ways to save it, especially when we're in an ultra marathon situation and we're not having to hold the same exact pace or similar paces that are at more extreme, and we can bring our body back down a little bit and recover within the time we have left. So yeah. Oh, Dylan, those are good suggestions with, pretzels. Yeah. So you can do whole foods as well. So you don't have to just do electrolytes and packs and gels and salt tabs and all those things. Pretzels are delicious and a good point. Yeah, for sure. Okay, we have 5 more minutes. Does anybody have anything else to add? Questions wise, comments wise, we'd love to hear all of them.
How much have people found that wearing like long sleeves in really hot weather, like white long sleeves, has actually been helpful? It's something I've never really tried, but I'm curious how effective people have found that.
Yeah. Have you been watching Pat Regan race and all of his like white garb? It depends. Some people find it useful. Some people find it oppressive because it's so much like touching your skin. It's definitely something that you'd want to try out, I think, on runs beforehand. Loose white fabric is usually pretty acceptable by anyone and helpful, but things that are tight can have variable responses with athletes, I found. Yeah. What's up, Dylan?
I was gonna say the white shirt has been a lifesaver for me. Like this weekend I went out and ran Saturday afternoon and it was like 90 plus degrees, low humidity, but still the heat was high. The UV index was high. I'll run with a white long sleeve shirt on, a hat and sunglasses. And that's been very effective for me. Just with keeping my core temperature down. Like I have a lot of like big tattoos. So if I'm gonna go run outside with any kind of like in any kind of shirtless, sun heat, like I'm gonna heat up really fast. Which is what I've been finding like with the tattoos. So like I like the white because it doesn't absorb anything and I can tell the difference between the spandex like that I'm wearing that's black versus the shirt that I'm wearing that's white. And if you want to, like, I'll spray it with water and I'll just go for a run with that. Like in my personal experience, it's been very helpful. I've actually talked to several people about it this week. I've kind of been on my high horse about it. Like, you need to wear white. Like you get it.
Yeah, I agree. Like everybody that implements that has had good results. Even when you're wearing a hat, like anything that can keep the sun off of your body, the UV rays off your body, like even getting those white shirts from REI that have UV protectant inside the fibers. I don't even know how that works, but integrated in the fibers, and hats that extend, like have that fiber wrap around them that helps you avoid having any kind of heat on your neck, especially when you're getting into temperatures over 80 degrees, is super helpful. I wish I could say that the arm sleeve thing right was helpful. It's just when it comes to touching your skin that can have some results that aren't as nice. But anyway, Pamela, do you have something to add?
Speaking of arm sleeves, I was going to say, when I've done my longest adventures, which usually stem anywhere between about 8 to 14 hours a day or so, I do use white arm sleeves. And I specifically purchased ones that are not the tight ones, but it sounds weird. On their title, they're called like mosquito repellents. They're a little looser and they're basically they're a little loose so that if a mosquito lands on you, it's not going to immediately bite you. I think that's the difference. Rather than it being compression, it's a little loose.
Yeah.
And I can follow up with the company. It's downstairs, but I can't remember the company. But I got them and they are amazing. And so they're lightweight, but they're not, I don't have to feel like my arms are being squished for 15 hours. And yet it is good not only from just body temperature. I find it helpful then also when I need to get something wet. They do dry off quickly, but it does help a little bit. And in addition, in terms of recovery, I'm huge on recovery. And if I can avoid having sunburn and having that exhaustion and the added decline, mean benefit of the sun exposure and weight of that, then it is helpful. Of course, sometimes if you don't apply sunscreen correctly around your arm bands there, you get a wicked suntan that looks weird, but I mean, as long you just know to be mindful. But I've seen it to be really helpful if it's the mosquito one, as a distinguishing feature.
That is fascinating. That's really great. I have never thought about that. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I haven't tried, but I've seen people also use arm warmers to put ice in them. That's like keeping you cool in that way. I haven't tried myself though.
I haven't either, but that is a really good thing. I thought about that too when Pamela was talking. That's a really good tip, because anything you can do to keep that ice on you. It's also a really good way if you were in the middle of overheating to help bring yourself back down too. So maybe even just having those in your back pocket in case. That'd be a good idea. We are about out of time. Does anybody have anything to add that you really wanted to cover before we jump off? I will be sharing all of this. We have it recorded this time. I should have captions on. I'm going to look up the information. I'm going to ask Lydia about the nutrition component when it comes to how concentrated your sweat might be. And then I'm going to look up the sweat test companies, get some recommendations for you all when it comes to cost and companies that might break down what's actually in your sweat a little bit more versus just how much you sweat. And then I might grab the mosquito sleeve link from Pamela if that will be helpful for everyone too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Emily, thank you all so much for joining and sticking with me through all my mutes. Emily, thank you so much. Pamela, you've been great. Thank you all for joining. I will give you all information about the challenge coming up too, and reach out if you need anything. And if you want to start working on specific needs of fluids during your run. So have a good night, everybody. It was so good seeing you all. Talk to you soon. Leslie, are you feeling okay? Yes. Yeah.
I'm alive. I actually just had to go run upstairs to grab my medicine because I was like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. I need to go take my medicine. So I was like, I'm not missing that dose. Like that is not a thing that's gonna happen. So
I guess I should stop presenting and stop recording.
Yeah.
Stop recording. There we go.